So today we're going to verify identities. It's just a little bit different than simplifying, but we have to know how to simplify to be able to verify. So if you will, do this problem for me. So I just want you to simplify here for me. Okay, so cotangent of x is cosine over sine. Cosecant squared is 1 over sine squared. Tangent is not cosine, it's sine over cosine. So this is multiplication, so what happens to one of those? So I'm going to be left with, man, can't write today. So I'm going to be left with cosine of x over sine of x minus 1 over sine x cosine x. Okay, so now I need to find a common denominator. So my common denominator will be sine times cosine. So I need to multiply this one by cosine x. So cosine times cosine is going to be cosine squared. Don't have to multiply this one by anything. And it'll be all over sine x cosine x. And then cosine squared x minus a 1. So that would be a negative sine squared x. So one of these is going to go away. So you're going to be left with negative sine x over cosine x, which is going to be a negative tangent x. Good deal? Okay, so today we are going to verify, and we are going to verify as much as we can. Okay, verifying basically is taking the simplifying but you know what you're going to be working towards. So there's going to be an equal sign that you're going to be working towards. So proving or verifying just means to show that both sides are equals. Okay, so to prove an identity, to prove or verify, you just want to simplify one side. Okay, until it equals the other. Okay. All right. So let's prove each identity. So I want to prove that cosecant of theta times cosine squared theta plus sine of theta. I want to prove that that is equal to cosecant theta. All right. So that means I don't want to touch one of the sides. Well, this one is the most one that I can simplify down. So it is a big thing, and it's equal to one term. Okay, it's got two terms over here, and I've got one term over here. So I want to take this side, and I want to make it look like this one. So cosecant is 1 over sine. And then you can just leave that as cosine squared. So this is just cosine squared over sine plus a sine. So then what can I do? Get a common denominator here. So this one is going to need a sine, right? So I'm going to multiply by sine over sine. So I'm going to end up with sine squared here. So I'm going to have a cosine squared theta plus a sine squared theta all over just a sine of theta. Cosine squared plus sine squared is just by the Pythagorean identity, it's just a 1. So this is going to be 1 over sine, and 1 over sine is cosecant. So there we go. So I proved that those two things are equal to each other. Yep. All right. All right, y'all try this one. And a thing to remember is always look at the one that's kind of the most complicated one that you can work through. Okay, so don't want to do anything, so I'm going to take the right hand side here. So I'm going to have a sine squared theta. Cosecant squared is 1 over sine squared. Yeah, this is just over a 1. This is multiplication here. So sine squared, what happens there? So I'm going to be left with 1 minus sine squared theta. And 1 minus sine squared theta is what? Cosine squared theta. So there we go. See how important it is to know these identities. So basically, if you can simplify, you can verify. Okay, so take a minute and do this one. All right, so I'm going to take this side and make it look like cotangent. Because cosecant is 1 over sine squared theta. Cosecant squared, oops. What could I do there instead of changing them? Before I do that, taking out there, what could I do? And I could have done it there too. Well, let's just do it how we had it. So 1 over sine squared theta. And also there's multiple ways that you could do these. So this will be then 1 over sine squared theta times sine squared theta. Yeah. So this will be 1 minus sine squared theta. Common denominator here. So we want it to be cotangent squared theta. So 1 minus sine squared theta is cosine squared theta. Over sine squared theta. So cosine squared sine over sine squared is cotangent. Good deal. so try this one. Okay. So cosecant squared is 1 plus 1 over sine squared theta. Cotangent squared is cosine squared over sine squared. Get a common denominator, so I would have sine squared theta plus 1 over sine squared theta. In the numerator, I would have sine squared theta plus 1 plus cosine squared theta over sine squared. So this is going to be sine squared theta plus 1 over sine squared theta times the reciprocal here. So it's going to be times sine squared theta over sine squared plus cosine squared. And what is sine squared plus cosine squared? It's just a 1. And what happens to these sine squared thetas? So I'm going to just be left with sine squared theta plus 1, and that's what I want. Just remember to bring that down as you go through that. Okay. All right, so I want you to start working on your homework. This is a good time for you to get caught back up. Tomorrow we will review everything, so I'll have a lot of reviews, and then we're going to have a quiz. So if you have any questions, let me know. Y'all have a good day.